Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. Today's segment is brought to you by GetValuate.com, online investment analysis. Well, today we're talking about the office market, the investment market, things important to office users around the country, or maybe you manage or advise or lease office space. Please welcome my next guest, Doug Lodder. He is Senior VP with Business Development with Boingo, and he's joining us on Skype. Doug, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
So, Doug, you guys are technology guys. You're in buildings. You're in office buildings. It seems like technology is taking over our office space today. What do you see?
What do we see? We see smart, and more smart. Everything is becoming smarter. The technologies are starting to work closer together. You're seeing it not just with tenants, but with owners. More information, better information, how to make smarter decisions. Everything is connected. And really the technology, in a similar way that owners, operators, and tenants have used other things like gyms and other perks to draw in tenants, you're starting to see technology as a way to draw in tenants, both from the owner perspective as well as from the tenant perspective. When they're trying to draw talent to come work at their companies, what are they doing for them technically? How are they making their job easier using technology? You're seeing a lot of companies now allowing their employees to bring their own devices, to bring, a second phone, an iPad, a watch, a wallet, glasses, whatever the technology of the moment is, and using all those things as a differentiator, as a way to attract talent, because it is a very competitive market, both for talent and for real estate. And so using technology as a differentiator is really something we're seeing a lot of.
Okay. So if I own an office building, an existing office building, what kind of technology might I think about today to attract tenants?
So there's two things that we're seeing a lot of today. The first is having better information and how to manage your building, right? So a lot of smart connected devices are giving owners the ability to pull levers and push buttons, whether it's power, whether it's planting, common area maintenance, things like that, that will give the building owner better information about when to turn things on and turn things off, and therefore save money. The other thing is more detailed information about the buildings themselves, whether that's photographs, 360 videos, 360 views, more precise measurements of the building, all things that are driving that technology to make better decisions and really make the transition from tenant to tenant and the transition from owner to owner a more seamless experience and less cumbersome, because you have all that information digitally, it's at your fingertips, and it's easier to transact.
Yeah, you think about back in the day where we had this expense of running these cables and pulling these cables out, right? I guess you're seeing a lot less of that, or?
Yeah, it's funny that even though it's wireless, there still is the need for a lot of wires. I think the wires are getting more efficient. They're starting to become better in terms of the types of cabling that's being deployed. So instead of having multiple different types of cabling in the walls, whether it's coax, fiber, Cat6, electrical, all the different things that are in the walls, I think are going to consolidate down into a cleaner set. So less coax, that's an older, more cumbersome, takes up more space. It's not as efficient as fiber optic and Cat6. So I think you'll see the types of cabling that's going into the buildings become a bit more precise and a bit more streamlined.
Okay. And what do you see for the future? It seems like technology changes daily now. So what might we see a few years from now?
What's really interesting and exciting for us is where the paradigm shift is going, right? So if you think about before the internet, before we had Microsoft Excel, or before we had email, we just did things differently, right? It was a different, when the internet came and when these new tools came, the way we worked changed. It just completely changed, and the way we interacted with each other changed. And that's really what technology is going to do going forward. So it's hard to say exactly what that paradigm shift is going to look like, but seeing what we're seeing in terms of artificial intelligence, machine learning, robotics, smart automation of a lot of different tasks and activities, it's really going to be a different way we're working using technology. And it's going to require a lot of different technologies to work very closely together. So you're going to see a lot of different, not just wireless technologies, a lot of computational technologies, algorithms on the back end. Everything is going to have to get smarter and work better together. And so it's really fun to be in the middle of all that ecosystem as the different technologies and hardware and software come to market, working wirelessly with each other. Making all of that connectivity work is really what's going to start to progress over the next 3 to 5 years.
Okay. And what is small cell technology?
So if we're talking about paradigm shifts in technology and where it's all going, that's all fun, and it's fun to visualize and fun to think about and banter and kick around and hear different ideas about what it may look like, because there's still a lot of unknowns there. But the one thing we do know is that the foundation of all of those things to work today is connectivity. There's data and connectivity kind of work hand in hand. You need great data, and you also need great connectivity. And connectivity drives data, data drives more connectivity. It's kind of a virtuous circle. And the challenge historically has been providing great connectivity over cellular has been very hard in office buildings. There are a handful of very large office buildings where investments have been made by wireless carriers to improve the cellular service in those buildings. But for the other 99.9% of office buildings in the country, it's been a really big challenge. If you go to conferences and speak on panels, you hear quite a bit that getting cellular connectivity into the smaller, 300,000, 400,000 square foot buildings has been a big challenge. And so the industry has really been working to try and solve that, make the deployments cheaper, make them easier, make the form of the hardware smaller, make the delivery mechanism more manageable. And I think all of that's starting to come to market in the form of small cells. And it's really going to enable those hundreds of thousands, if not millions of buildings that have really struggled to provide really great indoor wireless service to be able to do it in a pretty cost-effective way.
Now, are these small cells, are these antennas, or are these different from distributed antennas?
So DAS networks would traditionally have a really big head-end room. It was probably in a basement or in a parking structure with a lot of equipment, a lot of carrier equipment. So AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon, Sprint, they'd bring big base stations, which can be the size of a giant IT rack. And those would all interconnect into another piece of hardware that was feeding a bunch of antennas and radios distributed throughout the building. And it's a great platform. It's a great medium for the biggest and most robust buildings, but it's incredibly expensive. And so it doesn't always make sense for the smaller buildings. And so what small cells does is it takes all that equipment that used to be housed in a giant central location and shrinks it and spreads it out throughout the building. So putting it in telecom closets and spreading it out and eliminating a lot of components of the network that were inefficient or that just added to cost. And so really it looks and behaves a bit more like Wi-Fi in that the nodes are a lot smaller, the routing of cabling is a bit more seamless, there's no coax, it's all Cat6, Cat7 and fiber. And so it's really the next evolution of DAS is small cells, and it's really the perfect solution for smaller buildings.
So how is that impacting the trend for pricing? Is this getting a little less expensive?
It's getting a lot less expensive. So between the need of space, which is an opportunity cost for real estate owners, they're giving up space to house a lot of equipment, between getting that space back, spending less on the active components of the network that really are eliminated as part of this, you're seeing cost reductions of deployment in the 40 to 50% range.
Wow.
On a cost per square foot basis. And so it really is a really good medium, a whole new platform, and we're seeing a lot of interest from a lot of buildings who've been waiting a long time for something like this.
Yeah, and you think about the cost of not having the capability. We do office tenant rep in Atlanta, and a lot of the companies that we deal with, or a lot of companies in general, I guess, have salespeople, right? And they're on their phones, and it's money to them. And you see them out in the parking lots, and they can't go in the parking decks, and they can't go in the elevators because they lose service, and they're losing time, right?
Yeah, my cell phone as a salesperson, my sales phone is my cash register.
Right.
Everything happens on my cell phone, my email, my phone calls. I am still one of the old school guys who has a desk phone number. Most of the The younger salespeople on the team don't even bother with the desk phone. They want everything going to their mobile device. And even when my desk phone rings, my mobile device rings as well. So I'm still pretty advanced in that regard. But everything happens from the connectivity to our CRM, where I'm inputting different leads and keeping up with customers, to my inbox, my voicemail, text messaging, LinkedIn, you name it. Everything happens on my mobile device.
Yeah.
And we are mobile natives. We just do everything and expect everything to work perfectly on our mobile devices.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, you see our team, we're coming in, all right, I'm on Verizon. What do you want? Let's make sure we got all the carriers. And we're parking the car, we're going through the deck, we're going up the elevator. It's like, all right, you got service? You got service? But I guess there's a way to come in and kind of just test that capability a little easier than physically bringing all those phones, right?
Yeah, and you would think that, a lot of savvy owners are gathering that information ahead of time. And not just by pulling up a phone and checking to make sure the phone works. You can do pretty good, sophisticated RF survey testing to see really what the capacity is. Because even in an empty space with 4 people in there, you may get decent service. But once you load it up with people and you start putting people in every 150 or 250 square feet, suddenly the service can degrade pretty quickly. So by doing sophisticated RF surveys and benchmark data collection, you can actually understand what the capacity is, what the bandwidth would be in that building if it was fully loaded. So you're seeing a lot of more sophisticated owners, especially owners who have invested in wireless infrastructure, using that as a tool to attract more savvy tenant reps and tenants who are trying to not let their tenants down by putting them in a building, and then suddenly all the salespeople show up, turn their cell phones on, and it doesn't work.
Right.
So I think that evolution has happened. It's slow. But it's certainly happening.
We're talking with Doug Lodder, who is with Boingo, and this has kind of become another utility. You think about, internet as a utility, and now you think, well, wireless phone is kind of like it's another utility that's like we have to have, right?
Yeah, from a mindset expectation standpoint, just like you expect there to be a sink to wash your hands in the bathroom, you expect there to be connectivity. From a utility standpoint, it behaves a bit differently because while a lot of utilities like electricity and plumbing, for the most part, you install them and you can kind of walk away from them, and they're going to work until they don't work, and then you send someone out to go fix them. But they don't break nearly as much and require nearly as much attention as your wireless network. And so, in terms of being a utility, as consumers expect it the same way that they expect oxygen, yes. In terms of being able to just turn it on and not do anything with it for 4 to 5 years, that's not the case, because as we talked about earlier, technology changing so quickly, the expectation of what the technology is going to do for you and how it's going to be applied in the workplace is changing so rapidly that you really have to just be constantly on top of delivering the service and delivering a quality user experience.
Yeah, it's really important. It's one of the big check in the boxes for our tenants that we're dealing with. And so you mentioned that you should have buildings and spaces with sinks with running water. So what you're telling me is I'm supposed to wash my hands when I leave these restrooms and stuff.
You can follow your own protocol. I'm not going to tell you how to do that.
I'm a germaphobe. I wash my hands constantly, all the time. So don't have to worry about that. So I've heard people refer to something called the 4th Industrial Revolution. What is that? So
we kind of touched on it a bit earlier, right? And this whole concept of the 4th Industrial Revolution is really about how the digital world is starting to converge with the physical world. So the things that we're doing and the things that we're going to do in the future are just going to be different. It's not, going from the horse and buggy to the car. You didn't just attach horses to the car and have it pull the car. You just changed it entirely. You went from a horse and buggy to a car, and it was just a completely different experience. And that's really what's going to happen with this next wave of technology that's coming our way. The idea is to make, artificial intelligence, machine learning, autonomous cars, you name it. Our whole engagement with each other at work, with the work that we're doing, with the technology that we're deploying, is just going to be different. Some of the more obvious, easy to spot examples are autonomous cars, Uber, self-driving. Will we own cars in the future? Will cars fly? Things like that. And one thing that's certain amongst all of this is that the machines and the humans need to interact, and that medium is going to be some sort of wireless connectivity. And so when it comes to the current standards of wireless, which is Wi-Fi, cellular, Bluetooth, they all do a pretty good job of interacting with each other, but it's not always seamless. Sometimes when you get in your car, it doesn't connect to Bluetooth as quickly as you like, or when you get home, you're not jumping over to the Wi-Fi network as fast as you would like. But that's all become so much advanced from where it was a few years back that it's going to continue that path forward. And newer and faster technologies are going to come out that are going to need the ecosystem to really work more together. And so the fourth industrial revolution is just this whole paradigm shift that the way we live our lives, the way we do our work is going to be drastically different. And where we fit into the equation is all these different technologies that are powering what's called 5G are really going to be just this huge hodgepodge of different computers talking to cars, talking to people, talking to devices, and all of it's got to interact and work well together. And I think that's where we get excited about the future of our business, and it's also exciting about the future of the workplace.
Well, it is exciting. And Doug, thanks for joining us. Thanks for the information.
Absolutely.
If you'd like some more information, visit Boingo.com, and you can hear some more, read some more about their services and about getting cellular service and small cell service in your space and in your building. So stay with us. We'll have more on office use, office investments. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.